And welcome back to the Elias Macco Show. Now, Venezuela's former leader, Nicolas Maduro, showed up in front of a in a U.S. courtroom yesterday. Maduro declaring himself innocent and a decent man as he pleaded not guilty to federal drug trafficking charges. Of course, the operation over the weekend that saw the United States capture Maduro and bring him to U.S. soil. Now, in the meantime, we've got questions as to what happens in Venezuela next, especially with the government there. Venezuela's main opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, has vowed to return home quickly and has praised U.S. President Donald Trump for toppling Nicolas Maduro and declaring her movement ready to win a free election. Let's go to Jorge Jraissati now. He's president of the Economic Inclusion Group. He's a former youth member of Venezuela's opposition party. He joins us from Brussels. Jorge, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this invitation in this crucial time.
Yeah, and absolutely crucial. I guess I should start off with your reaction this weekend when the news came out. What was going through your mind?
It's a first step. It's not everything that has to be done, but it's a first step because Venezuela for so long has become a national security threat for the U.S. For us Venezuelans, it has become Maduro has become the source of all of our problems. The economic issues that we have had are historic. We have 80% of people in poverty. We have massive migration from our country. So it's one step, but it's one good step.
And speaking of the next steps, right, because, the U.S. capturing Nicolas Maduro, but they've left, that regime largely in place. I've seen some very interesting reporting as to the rationale behind that. Do you believe, at least in the short term, maybe medium term, that actually is the right idea?
I believe that the right idea is what Trump said in regards that the U.S. have to provide technical support of a transition in Venezuela, because by itself, the opposition cannot guarantee security in the country. Mm-hmm. Only through the U.S. support we can have that. So I really think that all these transition periods are very delicate, but you need to have buy-in from factions inside the country. You need to have buy-in from the population at large, and you need to have a strong U.S. leadership there. Right now, of course, if you only take Maduro out, it's not enough, mm-hmm. because you have all these criminal groups, all these state apparatus still intact.
So the challenge that lies ahead, how would you describe it? Because it seems like it's a monumental task to go through those next steps.
It's a monumental task. If I had to summarize it, I would say there is a huge security threat, and we need to tackle it like that. Without security, you don't have economic development, you don't have political freedoms, you cannot have free or fair elections. In fact, you cannot guarantee a security of the personnel who goes there to rebuild the oil industry or to rebuild a government. You can also not secure the security of the oil assets or any private investment that will go to Venezuela. So the way I see this is a massive security issue and is a massive economic development investment opportunity, but both are hand on hand.
So you were a former youth member of Venezuela's opposition party. I'd love to know more on just how is it being part of an opposition movement in Venezuela over the last couple of decades. And I wonder if that also led to you leaving the country at one point.
Yes, I have been involved in politics since I can remember. 14, 15 years old I was when I began. But then I had to flee the country for that reason. And then I have been between the US and Europe ever since. It is really difficult because when you live in an authoritarian context, you don't have the freedom to have normal political discourse, debate ideas, build proposals. So that's why you also see this decapitation of civil society. For example, in the US, you have a ton of think tanks. The same in Canada. You have a lot of debate. This didn't happen in Venezuela. And that's why it is really important to build a plan to bring people from outside the country that have the technical capacity that have the education, that have the training outside the US on the private sector, on think tanks, on academia, on energy. Because inside the country, we need to rebuild everything.
Everything, huh? Like from the ground up.
Everything.
Everything. We're with Jorge Jraissati. He's president of the Economic Inclusion Group. He's a Venezuelan. He joins us this morning from Brussels. Let me ask you about the steps that need to happen before we can get to elections. And let me bring into the discussion Maria Corina Machado. And what do you think needs to happen in the country before you can have an election, which could possibly see her, get elected and her party move to power?
A lot of things have to happen. You need to build the conditions for a normal political system, but you need to build the conditions. It's a very complex process, right? Because everybody will like a situation in which democracy just flourishes like that, and you have elections tomorrow in Venezuela. But the reality is that what right now have to be done is that there have to be a massive agreement after negotiation between people that have some power inside the country, between Americans, and at the same time also Venezuelans who want to come back and want to lead a transition government. So it's a very complex process. And again, the thing that I really emphasize is that you really, for example, in Venezuela, for people to understand, you not only have the Venezuelans, but you have the Cubans, you have Iranians,
yes,
you have paramilitary groups, you have a cybersecurity threats. If you maintain these threats, no election will ever matter. No amount of investment can actually come and bring prosperity to people. So a lot of things have to happen, but I think the most important step is to actually galvanize all the people who want to be part of a transition. And this involves Americans. Americans wants to put money in Venezuela. Americans want to put expertise in Venezuela. Also people from the region, other Latin American countries, Europeans, etc., and a lot of Venezuelans. Venezuelans are the key factor here. And I'm not talking about opposition members. I'm talking about Venezuelans who are willing to put their time, their expertise, their money to rebuild the country. There has to be this coordinated effort of all these people that have all this know-how so we can rebuild our nation, because ultimately it depends on the Venezuelans ourselves to do so.
Jorge, I have a lot of listeners who are skeptical about Donald Trump and his motivations. Do you have skepticism towards the U.S. president and his administration?
The fact is that many other measures have been tried before, any kind of negotiation, diplomatic pressure, sanctions, etc. In Venezuela, we have tried elections, peaceful protests, and nothing seems to work. So right now, we have a chance of something happening. About any kind of skepticism, what I see is the results. And the way I understand the Americans is that they really think that they need to bring back the Monroe Doctrine to the region, which means that they cannot allow foreign powers to be in Venezuela, Iran, Cuba, China, Russia. So if they really believe that, which I think they do, the administration does, then it means that Venezuela has to become a freer country. And that by definition is good for the Americans and is good for ourselves, because nobody wins in a situation where you have a failed state at the middle of the continent.
Are you going back anytime soon?
When we have when we can ensure that what we can do, that we are secure, I will be back in Venezuela because I have this commitment. And I think that all of us who are speaking on media or talking about the situation or organizing people, our responsibility as Venezuelans, or historic responsibility, is to come back. I will go back to Venezuela. I want to go back to Venezuela. But at the same time, I'm not one of these activists who just says, yes, I will come back to Venezuela at any means. It's not like that. We need to be really smart because this is a really dangerous situation.
Jorge, I have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insight this morning. I appreciate it. I know our listeners appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anytime.
Jorge Jraissati is president of the Economic Inclusion Group. He's a former youth member of Venezuela's opposition party.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.